Hello and welcome to Shattered Lives, Reach Ireland's crime podcast. I'm Paul Healy. You're stuck with me again this week. Michael O'Toole is still away on holidays, but we look forward to having him back hopefully next week. Lot to talk to you about this week, but I want to start with a case that I have come out of this morning, and that is a defamation case involving the BBC and Ryan Casey, the boyfriend of the late Ashling Murphy. And obviously many people will remember that Ashling Murphy was brutally murdered in January of 2022 by Joseph Pushka. It was a horrific murder that shocked the country. She was out for a run in Cappancur, near her home place, when this monster killed her in the most brutal way imaginable. And it was a high-profile trial, and Joseph Pushka was ultimately jailed for life. But in all of that time, there has been an awful lot of unfortunate commentary, in my opinion, although I don't give my opinion, I shouldn't too often as a journalist, about Ryan Casey's victim impact statement that he gave during that sentencing hearing of Joseph Pushka. And since then, he took a case against the BBC in relation to commentary made on the political programme The View by Irish Times journalist Kitty Holland. He sued the BBC in relation to that commentary, which criticised his victim impact statement. And since then, that defamation case has been going on, and Ryan has been, I suppose, unable to speak as a result of this case going on. So, I mean, he hasn't, if he had wanted to, been able to speak about his victim impact statement or speak at all if he wanted to clarify those remarks. And he had that first opportunity today when this matter has finally been resolved before the High Court. And I was there this morning to hear a statement that was read out by the BBC in which it was happy to clarify a number of matters about that programme. So they said in the BBC's 30th of November 2023 episode of its live political programme The View, Ryan Casey's victim impact statement at the sentencing of his late partner's murderer was discussed. The BBC stands by the journalism involved in this episode, which debated serious issues of public interest. The BBC is, however, happy to clarify that it does not consider Ryan Casey to be a criminal or a racist or someone guilty of attempting to incite hatred or someone seeking to pose as a hero of the far right through his victim impact statement. The BBC acknowledges Mr. Casey's personal tragedy, and the statement clarifies any unintentional inferences that could have been drawn from the broadcast and has enabled the BBC and Ryan Casey to resolve this matter amicably. Following that, Ryan released a statement to us and to other media outlets in which he stated that he was glad to see the end of this very long and difficult chapter. He told us, "Today marks the end of a long and difficult chapter of frustration and censorship. I took this legal action against the BBC not solely out of anger, but out of a need for accountability and dignity for Ashling, for myself, our families, and for all victims who deserve to have their voices heard without such harsh criticism or judgment." He went on to say, "I welcome the resolution of these legal proceedings and the acknowledgements made by the BBC in their statement in open court today. I hope this serves as a reminder to to all media organisations of the high level of responsibility that comes with running such public platforms. This was never just about me, it was about truth, fairness and decency." He went on to speak about the support he's received throughout all of this. He said, "To everyone who supported me, either in person, by post, text messages, phone calls, social media posts and comments over the last 3.5 years, I can finally come forward and say from the bottom of my heart, thanks to each and every one of you. Don't think for a second I didn't see all of your amazing support across all platforms. It was humbling to say the least. I'd also like to thank my lawyers Ronan, Lupton, Gerard and Marianne for their fantastic guidance, support and professionalism throughout this entire legal proceeding." And he went on to say, "I now move forward, finally free to use my voice again, to honour Ashling and to advocate for the changes we desperately require in this country, for the increased safety measures we so clearly need, and for a society that listens to its people free of gaslighting, blacklisting or censorship. We all have a lot more in common than what separates us. Let's honour Ashling by building a safer Ireland. We all know we can do so much better." So those are the comments made by Mr. Casey today, and I know that this is the end of a long process for him, as he says himself, of frustration and of censorship. Again, we don't give views as journalists, but I just think, in the interests of fairness, I sat every day of that horrific murder trial, and I was there in court to hear Mr. Casey's victim impact statement, and I would say that it's one thing to read something, and in particular to isolate particular parts of a statement, and then to go on and interpret it, than to actually sit there and listen to somebody speak raw, from the bottom of their heart. And I've said this before. You try to remove emotion when you cover things like this. You're just compartmentalizing and doing your job. This is one of the rare times where I struggled to report what I was hearing in the courtroom, because it was just so emotional and coming, as I said, from the bottom of Ryan Casey's heart. And when you hear the sentiment involved, and you understand the full context of his statement, I just don't know how anybody could go and cherry pick it and take it out of context and provide their own commentary about it. Ryan Casey is a victim. And this was a victim impact statement that was very much directed at Joseph Pushka and about sending a message to him. He was about to be jailed for life, and a message to the judge. It wasn't really designed for any other purpose than that. And unfortunately, people on the left side of the argument, I suppose, for lack of a better term, some decided that it was better to censor and to not mention Ryan Casey's statement entirely. I know that to be the fact. Or to not mention specific parts of his statement, or to make commentary about them. And then people on the more extreme, far right, I suppose, end of things, used it in a way that I don't think Mr. Casey intended it for it to be used. Now, I'm sure he has his views and he's entitled to those views, but those are his views. It's not for someone else to co-opt them and to use them for some other purpose. And it's very, very sad and unfortunate that it was by some people, very minute fraction of people, but certainly not Ryan Casey and anyone associated with him. And it's just very sad that this matter went on for as long as it did, I think, for Mr. Casey. But that's, look, my own view, which I really shouldn't give too often. But as I said, this is the end of a long road for Ryan Casey, and it comes actually as he and the family of Ashling Murphy are awaiting the sentencing hearing for certain members of the Pushka family who have been convicted in relation to offences recently. We've received some criticism for not covering this. We did cover it. I sat in every day of the Joseph Pushka trial, and I covered every day of that as well. But we cannot always cover every single moment of every single trial. I think we'd go stir crazy if we did. And we've been waiting for the sentencing hearing in relation to that, so that we can just give you the full story. I mean, it's all out there. There's no censorship. Certain members of the Pushka family, so Marek Pushka and Lubomir Pushka, brothers of Joseph Pushka, were found guilty in relation to withholding evidence, including that Joseph returned home on the night of the murder with visible injuries and admitted to the killing or seriously injuring a woman. And their wives, Puskina Grunzova and Viera Gizova, were charged with impeding Pushka's apprehension or prosecution by burning his clothes. So Mr. Pushka's wife was also charged in relation to all of this, and that matter is still before the courts, and those people are going to be sentenced, and we will be giving that plenty of oxygen when that happens. There's been a lot of commentary about this case, obviously, because it just completely affected the entire nation, and I think everybody has an opinion about it. I just want to mention Ryan Casey. You can go and you can read his entire victim impact statement. We published it in its entirety at the time, and I think it has to be taken in its entirety. It would be all well and good for me to cherry pick here now. I think it's all well and good to take that and interpret that whatever way you see fit. The only thing that I would say that is factually true is that Joseph Pushka came to this country in 2013, and he didn't hold down a job, he didn't work, he didn't learn how to speak English. And he was assisted by the state, and plenty of people do come here and need genuine assistance and do try to take up work. And you could turn this into again, I'm being cautious here because I shouldn't be giving my opinion, but this isn't an immigration issue so much as I believe that Ryan Casey was speaking about someone who went on to commit the most heinous crime imaginable, and yet was supported by the state and never once contributed to society, and that is backed up by fact. Joseph Pushka did not contribute to this society, and now he is in prison serving a life sentence where he is being taught English at the expense of you and I, the taxpayer. I can understand how people can be annoyed about that. And Mr. Casey should be, and anyone should be, entitled to their viewpoint on that. This isn't, about racism or about the immigration issue or even a political issue. In my opinion, Ryan Casey is a victim who has suffered something that many of us, thankfully, will never have to suffer. And for him, in that very vulnerable moment, to sit in a courtroom and to give a victim impact statement, he should be entitled to say what he wants in that regard. It's not for us, the media, to censor that. It's not for us, the media, to comment on that, really. And, even though I've kind of done so now here, but I'm speaking in support of his right to say what I believe he has the right to say, whether I agree with it or whether I disagree with it or profoundly disagree with it, which, my opinion is irrelevant. I believe in people's ability, people to be able to freely speak in this country, and for us, the media, to report what is said. It's not for us to cherry pick and decide and to censor. That's just my 2 cents on that. The other matter I want to just speak on briefly is obviously the McGregor case, which was resolved, which came to a conclusion for now yesterday, the appeal. And if you've been following this, you know that the kind of second half of this case was really dealing with James Lawrence. I'm not going to speak about that other than the judgment has been reserved in relation to his costs and in relation to Conor McGregor's appeal. So, the judges will come back and make a decision in the coming weeks. We don't have a date yet. That'll be announced ahead of time when they've made their decision as to whether Conor McGregor is successful in his appeal. And if he is, a retrial is the most likely route that'll happen here. But the most interesting thing that's come out of this is that there now potentially could be a criminal investigation off the back of this, an investigation by the DPP. Because the Miss Hand's legal counsel were trying to argue before the judges that the two witnesses in this case who were withdrawn by Conor McGregor at the final minute, at the last minute, Stephen Cummins and Samantha O'Reilly, their statement is out there. Sworn affidavits were opened in court and they were published in the media and they were put out there, and now they're withdrawn. And Nikita Hand had maintained in a sworn affidavit that the claims being made by Stephen Cummins and Samantha O'Reilly, who claimed to in some way witness an alleged assault on Nikita Hand by her former partner in the hours after the alleged rape in the Beacon Hotel, those claims were lies, Miss Hand said, and counsel for Miss Hand said that by withdrawing that, Mr. McGregor's side were effectively conceding that point, that the claims being made by Stephen Cummins and Samantha O'Reilly were lies. And so John Gordon, the senior counsel for Nikita Hand, was recommending that this be brought to the attention of the Director of Public Prosecutions because he alleged that perjury had committed here and possibly subornation of perjury by Conor McGregor himself. And the dramatic bombshell drop at the end of the case there yesterday was that the judges, led by Miss Justice Isabel Kennedy, have decided to refer the matter to the DPP. That means that this couple, Samantha O'Reilly and Stephen Cummins in particular, because of their sworn affidavits which have been withdrawn, the DPP may examine whether or not to open a criminal investigation into those in relation to alleged perjury. But Conor McGregor also could face prosecution in relation to this, although he has not been at this point in time referred to the DPP. He nonetheless has been accused of putting forward these witnesses who committed perjury, so he may find himself under investigation in relation to this. Now, a spokesperson for Conor McGregor has said that he has not been referred to the DPP. That's as of this moment. We tried to speak to Samantha O'Reilly and Stephen Cummins, but perhaps unsurprisingly, they didn't want to speak. They wouldn't open the door to me. Blinds were being closed, and I was being told by someone that she didn't want to talk to me, Samantha O'Reilly. Um, and a neighbour actually escorted me off the property. So they've no interest in talking, but their names and their faces are out there now, and they have been accused of lying. They've been accused of perjury, and they're facing a potential investigation by the DPP. This is somewhat unusual in that the judges of the Court of Appeal have referred, or will be referring this on to the DPP. So it's kind of bypassing the Garda stage, although I do think that if this progresses forward, obviously Garda are going to have to become involved in some capacity. But perjury in the High Court is very, very serious indeed, and it can carry a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a €100,000 fine. So if Conor McGregor and Stephen Cummins and Samantha Riley find themselves being accused of perjury, they could potentially be facing jail time over this. So it's a huge, significant development. I have to wonder whether Conor McGregor regrets ever putting this evidence forward in his appeal. We are not privy to the reason why he withdrew it at the final hour. His own legal counsel said there were reasons, but they wouldn't go into those reasons in open court. And perhaps significantly, Mrs. Hand's side presented documentation that was read by the judges privately, but they decided not to read out in open court because it could potentially form part of a criminal investigation. Whatever's in those documents, we'd be very interested to see what it says. But, obviously Miss Hand's side are accusing this couple of perjury and Mr. McGregor of subornation of perjury. But Mr. McGregor obviously chose to withdraw these witnesses, and it was really the key pillar of his appeal. Probably the most dramatic and significant part of his appeal was this claim by the couple with which he withdrew. All that's left then are smaller kind of legal technicality issues that frankly, I and maybe a lot of people don't really have the knowledge to understand. That's down to these barristers and lawyers and these learned judges to examine the law and see whether Conor McGregor did or did not have a fair trial back in November of last year. So they're going to go away and they're going to think about that. But yeah, a lot's come out of that since. So we wait with bated breath to see what happens with that. So I think that's the podcast, relatively short and sweet again. But thank you for listening to us, and we'll talk to you next week.